Hi everybody, my name is Mikhail, and today I'm going to show you how to get the most accuracy out of your brake barrel air rifle. The first thing you want to do when you get your brake barrel air rifle out of the box is to make sure all your screws are torqued correctly. Now notice, I didn't say torqued tight because that's not always what you want. For instance, when you have a scope, which I do not currently have a scope mounted on this air rifle, but if you did, you would want to make sure that your rings are torqued properly, because if you over-torque the rings, you'll end up crimping your scope tube, which will make it completely useless. You'll need to apply a lot more force to your action screws to torque them properly, because if you don't, your action will be wiggly in your stock, which will mean that your accuracy will be absolutely awful. And I know this firsthand because for a while, I was just shooting this without torquing the action screws, and I was getting pretty terrible groups, like 3 inches at 20 yards. As soon as I torqued down those action screws properly, I started getting really good accuracy, like 1-inch groups at 20 yards. So, the next thing you want to do when you get your brake barrel air rifle out of the box is to lubricate everything properly. So, a lot of guys will tell you, put a little silicone oil down the barrel. That is absolutely wrong. Never, ever, ever do that. That's like putting oil in the chamber of a rear rifle, and what will happen is your pressures will spike. You could blow something up. With an air rifle, there's a bit less pressure in there, but still, that's a really bad idea. So if you're going to lubricate something, lubricate the moving parts. Like when you break open the air rifle, lubricate that hinge in there. Make sure that's lubricated properly. Because if you don't do that, it's going to wear out really fast. But never ever put any lubricant in the piston or the barrel. GAMO says not to. It's just a really, really bad idea. Don't do it. But make sure you lubricate and maintain all the other parts properly. So, now that your gun is ready to shoot, you're going to need to consider what sort of sighting system you have. A lot of air guns will come with scopes in the box, and those are usually pretty cheap. What's even worse than the scopes they send is the mounts they send. They send oftentimes really terrible mounts. So I've actually used this exact mount that came with my GAMO air rifle. I've used this on a quality scope, a Vortex Crossfire, and with 15 inch-pounds of torque on these rings, which is the least amount of torque you would want to put on them. It actually slightly dented the scope's tube at certain pressure points within the rings. So just, if you're going to mount a scope on any gun, make sure you get quality mounts for it, because you can absolutely wreck a scope by using cheap mounts. Another thing you want to be aware of is that brake barrel air rifles tend to wreck scopes. I've broken 3 scopes on this exact air rifle. I've broken the scope that came with it just from using it. I've broken a Vortex Crossfire scope, the reticle inside it broke, and I've also broken a Bushnell scope. All those 3 scopes broke on this air rifle. Now, I will say, the Vortex Crossfire scope was my fault because it broke. Remember how I talked earlier about torquing down everything correctly and how important it is not to over-torque your rings? Well, I over-torqued my rings on my Vortex Crossfire scope, and that crashed it. So, if you're going to mount your own scope, get a torque wrench. Never ever use the Allen wrench it comes with. Ever. Don't do it. If you want the simplest, easiest, and most reliable solution, use the open sights that come with your brake barrel. You will shoot a rifle better if it fits you. It's really important when you're using a brake barrel air rifle, or any gun for that matter, to make sure it fits you well. So, this is a decision you need to make when you buy the gun. You need to make sure the stock is the correct length for you. And the stock on this gun, the GAMO Roadster that I'm using today, has got like a 15-inch length of pull, which is a really long length of pull. But because I have really long arms, it fits me perfectly. One thing that didn't fit me perfectly out of the box was the cone height. So even for the open sights, I needed a little bit higher cheek piece on the stock. So I built that myself, just out of a piece of metal that I kind of bent into a cheek riser. And it works pretty well, but it probably wouldn't work for you because you're not the same as me. You need to adjust it a bit. When you buy your brake barrel air rifle, you're probably going to put out a solid amount of money for it because you want a good one, right? Well, if you're going to do that, then don't go buy the cheapest tin of pellets you can afford, because seriously, they're going to be awful. These are Game of Tomahawk pellets, and these are Crosby Piranha pellets, and they're a little bit more on the pricey side, but they're a whole lot better than those cheapo daisy ones you get. You need to select the right pellet because it's going to be a more consistent diameter and a more consistent grain weight. And keep in mind that every air rifle will shoot pellets differently. So for instance, these Game of Tomahawks are what I use most of the time. They're, what grain weight are they? They're 0.49 grams, which is 7.56 grains. And these Crosby Piranha pellets are 10.5 grains. So these are quite a bit heavier than these. They're going to shoot differently. So I'm going to show you these Game of Tomahawk pellets and these Crosby Piranha pellets and how differently they shoot out of the same gun. Alright, I have a very sophisticated shooting rest setup that consists of a lawn chair. We're going to see what kind of accuracy we get out of two different kinds of pellets. So first, we're going to shoot these 7.5 grain Game of Tomahawk pellets and see what happens. I think those two are in the same hole. Oh man, I think we're getting a pretty good group there. Okay. The gun is clear. Let's see how that looked. Okay, so that was 5 shots with the Game of Tomahawk pellets on the left bullseye. We got 3 right in the pink, and then 2 kind of around the side. That's about a 1.5 inch group. That's not terrible for a break barrel air rifle. That's pretty good. And I would bet you that these 2 are flyers, and that's the actual group right there. Yeah, that's a pretty good group. Now we're going to test these Crosby Piranha 10.5 grain pellets. And because I ran out of bullseyes, we're going to be aiming for a groundhog's heart. Alright, the gun is clear. Let's see what our group looks like. Alright, so aiming for the groundhog's heart, and it doesn't look like we hit his heart. That's to be expected because I wasn't sighted in for these pellets, I was sighted in for the Gamo pellets. But, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like we actually got the bullseye twice with our Crosby Piranha pellets. These other shots are from some practice shots I was taking, but it looks like 1, 2, 3, and I don't know where the other ones are. Possibly, oh no, 1, 2, 3. It looks like we hit the bullseye 3 times with the Crosby Piranhas, hit once over here, and our 5th shot is nowhere to be seen. So, as you can see there, the Crosby pellets and the Gamo pellets shot very differently. Even though the Crosby pellets were more expensive than the Gamo pellets, they actually shot worse out of my gun. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that the Crosby pellets are trash. They're probably actually better pellets than the Gamo pellets. It's just that every gun shoots ammunition differently. Thank you guys for watching Scope Bad Outdoors. I hope you enjoyed today's video and learned something from it. I'll catch you on the next one.